Today on the Big 3 in 30, the Titans have found their next head coach.
Robert Saleh isn't a perfect candidate, but he was the perfect man for the job with where the Tennessee Titans were at right now.
The Seahawks lose Zach Charbonnet for the rest of the playoffs.
Seattle's going to have to do it, however, without its top touchdown scorer, Zach Charbonnet.
And the Lions hire a new offensive coordinator.
Drew Petzing, 38 years of age, coming over from the Arizona Cardinals.
This is the Big 3 in 30 NBA. The three biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 in 30 NBA starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 in 30 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Titans hired their next head coach in former Jets coach Robert Saleh. Locked On Titans host Tyler Rowland tells us what he thinks of the fit as Saleh gets another shot at running an NFL team.
Robert Saleh was not my number one candidate of the hiring cycle. Robert Saleh isn't a perfect candidate, but he was the perfect man for the job with where the Tennessee Titans were at right now. He brings so much to the table that the Tennessee Titans desperately need. And when it comes to one side of the ball or the other, Robert Saleh gives you a distinct schematic advantage. Number one, more important than anything, what have we talked about for months and months and months on this program? What have the Titans talked about? What has Mike Borgonzi, the general manager, talked about? What has Jeffrey Simmons talked about in the locker room? Leadership. Leadership. Leadership is the key, and Robert Saleh, more than anything else, is a leader. Robert Saleh is a guy who has a ton of former players who talk all the time about how he lifted them up. He is pure positivity all the time, getting the most out of players. I talked to someone in the media that covered Robert Saleh with the New York Jets, and he said the number one thing is he gets the absolute best out of all of his players. Whether you're at the top of the roster, whether you're at the bottom of the roster, you're the 90th man on the team, Robert Saleh is going to pour into you and get the absolute best out of you. Now look, who does that sound like? Sure does sound like Mike Vrabel. And I know that it would be easy to say, oh, well, the Tennessee Titans fired Mike Vrabel and then just went out and tried to find another Mike Vrabel. Well, that doesn't really sound like a bad plan right now, does it? That is something that good leaders do. They build their players up. They build their roster up. Whether you're the top guy or the bottom guy, it doesn't matter. You get the same support and love and encouragement. That is leadership. Being able to have the hard conversations, driving your guys to be better, doing it in a positive way. Robert Saleh is a pure leader. And whether it's his players in San Francisco, the players he had when he was with the New York Jets, across the board, every single person that you hear who talks about Robert Saleh talks about how great of a man he is, how great of a leader he is, and what they did or what he did for them to build them up and make them a better person and a better player. That is leadership, and that's what this franchise desperately needed. They needed a North Star. They needed a motivator. They needed somebody to be the face of the franchise, to be the driving force of the franchise, and Robert Saleh has that in his DNA. All right, Stone Cold Robert Saleh is here. I could not be more excited. Again, the leadership is a great thing. But the schematic advantage the Tennessee Titans just got on the defensive side of the ball, guys, you do not realize how incredibly genius this beautiful bald man is on the defensive side of the ball. I have mentioned it throughout the process when I talked about Saleh, who was one of my hype candidates. He may not have been my top candidate on the board, but when we did my hype, hate, and happy tiers for the coaching staff, Robert Saleh was 100% in my hype tier. So make no mistake about it. Robert Saleh may not be the perfect candidate, but I am hyped about this decision because of the defensive side of the ball. Look around the NFL right now. Look around the NFL. The defensive side of the ball is king right now. The offense has slowed down. Scoring has slowed down. Too high safety shows. Teams have to run the ball, putting a cap on the explosive plays. Defense rules the day, and Robert Saleh truly is a defensive mastermind. Again, I mentioned this stat throughout the process. In Robert Saleh's last 17 games, as the head coach of the New York Jets, his last 17, he had the number one defense in EPA, number one defense in EPA per play. He leaves the next 16, 17 games for the Jets. They're last. They're last. This year in San Francisco, tons of injuries all over the board. They had nobody. They had a mash unit on defense. They were last in sacks, last in pressure rate. And yet Robert Saleh's defense was still incredible all year, and the San Francisco 49ers led that all the way to a playoff win. He shut down the Eagles' offense. They went 11-5, made the playoffs. Like, he took a mash unit and got the absolute most out of them. That proves that not only is he a defensive genius schematically, but again, the leadership to have literally a JV team on defense and still find a way to be excellent. That is leadership. That's what we're looking for. And you don't have to worry about him not calling defensive plays and losing that advantage. Saleh has said, I didn't call the plays the whole time when I was with the Jets. That was a mistake. I am calling plays. It keeps me connected to the game and connected to my players. Robert Saleh will call plays, so we're not going to lose that defensive genius and that defensive excellence. And that is critical. I've said it over and over and over again. I want someone who is the top schematic mind in their organization on one side of the ball, and that's what you get with Robert Saleh. So defensive genius and leadership. And if you want more than just this season, 5 out of the last 9 years with Robert Saleh running the defensive side of the ball, he had a top 5 defense in total D. That's total yards allowed. Top 5. 5 times out of the last 9 years. 5 times out of the last 9 years. Top 5 pass defense. He had one year where he was 11th as well. So we're talking about 6 out of the last 9 years. He's basically had a top 5 or top 10 pass defense. Putting you in a bottle. Absolutely fantastic. Those are the 2 key pillars here of why Robert Saleh was a great fit. Not only that, but the offensive connections. All right, the worry with a defensive-minded head coach. What are they going to do on offense? Who's going to be the head coach of the offense? Well, who has better connections in the NFL than Robert Saleh? Mike LaFleur, who's with the Rams. You get access to the Sean McVay tree. Clay Kubiak with the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Kyle Shanahan might not let him go, so he might not be an option, but you're going to have a connection to other people in the Kyle Shanahan coaching staff and the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. Obviously, Mike McDaniel, who we're going to talk about at the end of the show, there are some reports out there that indicate Robert Saleh wants his buddy, his best friend, to come with him. And that's a buddy hire that I can approve of. You get access potentially to the Green Bay coaching tree under Matt LaFleur. Adam Stenovich, Luke Getsy, Bobby Slowick with the Houston Texans, or used to be with the Houston Texans, could be an option here as well. There is no one better suited on the defensive side of the ball in the NFL to find good offensive coordinator talent than Robert Saleh, which is the number one concern about Robert Saleh is the offensive side of the ball. But that concern is limited by the fact that he has great connections. And then let me also say this. Robert Saleh hates with the passion of 1,000 burning suns. Jacksonville Jaguars coach Liam Cohen hates him. And I love that. Screw the Jaguars, screw the Texans, screw the Colts. Robert Saleh will beat up your... D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh would be quite the clash, right? But those 2 guys know each other very well. And Robert Saleh actually had a job on the Texans coaching staff before he got his big break as a defensive coordinator. So Robert Saleh is perfectly suited to come to the AFC South. He is going to bully Liam Cohen. And I cannot wait. Enjoy the cold, dark locker you are about to be shoved in, Jacksonville Jaguars fans. Ha! Hope you enjoyed the year. Robert Saleh's here. Boom. By God, that's Robert Saleh's music. But listen, what has me so excited about this is not only Robert Saleh as a candidate and what that means and his pros here, but the Tennessee Titans got this right. It wasn't a perfect process by any stretch of the imagination, but this shows that the Tennessee Titans are moving away from the Buddy Hire system that would have led them to Matt Nagy and leading them to the best candidate possible. And this isn't the only example. The guy who hired Robert Saleh, Mike Borgonzi, also is an example of the Titans correcting their old way.
The NFL playoffs are rolling along, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a Profit Boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple Profit Boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your Profit Boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bet feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your Profit Boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 NFL. The Seattle Seahawks look like true contenders going into the NFC Championship game against the Rams, but Seattle will have to win the last 2 games without running back Zach Charbonnet. Locked On Seahawks host Corbin Smith looks at the loss in the backfield.
The Seahawks are heading to the NFC title game, and they'll be battling the Los Angeles Rams, second straight playoff game that is a grudge match in the best division in the NFL, the NFC West, an opportunity to get back to the Super Bowl. Seattle's going to have to do it, however, without its top touchdown scorer, Zach Charbonnet. Contrary to Mike McDonald's optimism we got after the game on Saturday, he is officially done for the season with a torn ACL, is going to need to have reconstructive knee surgery, and this is a substantial blow. And I know there's plenty of people out there said, well, look, this is a backup running back, but honestly, it's felt like 1A, 1B all season, especially with the way they've been running the ball as of late, averaging over 165 rushing yards per game in their last 4 wins. Rob, this is a substantial loss. There's no question about it. And I think just listening to Mike McDonald speak this morning on his radio show on Seattle Sports 710, this is one of those heart and soul guys for this football team. And he speaks with how he plays. He's a soft-spoken guy, but that his actions are where his words speak loudly. He is going to go out there and he's going to truck guys. He is going to break tackles. He is going to run through guys. He's kind of got that run through your face mask mentality that Marshawn Lynch brought to the equation, and guys feed off of that. So I think just as much as the production you've had, just his style, not having him out there for this game against the Rams. He scored a touchdown in that overtime win a few weeks ago, had some big plays in that game. It is going to be tricky for Seattle to compensate for not having him out there because of how he complements Ken Walker III's style, and the fact that I don't know that Seattle has any other backs on the roster or in the practice squad that's going to be able to offer that same ferocity running the football.
Yeah, I think especially the ferocity running the football aspect of what you just said, Corbin, is very accurate. You are not going to be able to replicate what number 26 brought to the Seahawks in terms of his physicality, in terms of his desire, in terms of his pass protection. He's a reliable receiver out of the backfield. You mentioned the touchdown against the Rams, obviously the famous, or in some people's minds, infamous 2-point conversion. Just the wherewithal and just the respect for the game to pick that football up. There's just so many things that Zach Charbonnet brings to the Seahawks that is larger than the idea that he is quote unquote just a backup running back. We've often talked about the fact that Seattle has one of the best 1-2 punches at the running back position in all of the NFL. And Kenneth Walker III has often been described as kind of the lightning guy, the speed guy. I mean, he's got this kind of almost like a Maserati type of a combination of change of direction, straight line speed. The San Francisco 49ers and surrendering 3 touchdowns to K9 this past weekend. They certainly saw that. But Zach Charbonnet is the 1-ton truck. And you used that word yourself just a moment ago in describing the way that Charbonnet plays. Look, the Seahawks have, several qualified running backs that are going to be able to fill in, for Zach Charbonnet. But it's the locker room presence that he provides that I think is going to be a little bit tougher to replace. Your heart's a little heavy just because I don't know that any player better epitomize Seattle's toughness and grit this season than Zach Charbonnet. That said, if there is one position where it does feel like the Seahawks have they're just rich in assets. I do think it's at the running back position. Now, whether it be a Velus Jones, a Cam Akers, a Jacardia Wright, a George Holani, the Seahawks have some talented running backs that they can call upon here. But I don't know that any of those aforementioned backs are going to be able to provide the combination of skills on and off the field that Zach Charbonnet capably provided the Seahawks, not only this season, but since the Seahawks made him a second-round selection a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I want to start with George Holani because right before we started recording this podcast, right before we went live, Mike McDonald currently is speaking with reporters at the VMAC, and he made it clear that George Holani is an option this week. He's been on injured reserve since November 29th with a hamstring injury. They didn't activate him or bring him back to practice last week, and I would think if we're going to have an update on that, it'll be coming tomorrow, early morning Wednesday at the very latest, because they're going to want to get him out there in the practice field. We might even hear about it today later if the Seahawks have an abbreviated practice today. We'll have a chance to see where George Holani potentially fits in. And I would think if Holani is healthy, that is your best fit to bring in because he knows this offense inside and out. And he had 22 carries before he got hurt. So the Seahawks were using him in the run game in more than just garbage time. He scored a touchdown in the first half against Arizona in week 10. Clint Kubiak's got a lot of faith in him, and he can pass protect. He can catch the football. He is a 3-down back, which the Seahawks are going to need somebody that can do that. Velus Jones is the 4-3 guy that's got the blazing speed, but has less than 20 career carries since he came into the league. He's been a receiver running back hybrid. You can utilize him as kind of a change of pace guy. Cam Akers is the most experienced back, but he hasn't been utilized much as a running back for the last 2.5 years. He hasn't had many carries, so you'd be leaning on early in his career experience rather than what he's done as of late. But he is playing the team that drafted him and initially let him go. So there may be some extra motivation for Cam Akers this week as well. But I'll also throw this out there. They might call in Myles Gaskin again on speed dial. I don't know that he would be a guy they would have playing in this game, but just to get more depth to put on the practice squad. And he played in a game earlier this year, had a couple carries in that game. So there's some names we can throw out there. I think the one thing we know is there's not going to be a Marshawn Lynch returning this time, or Chris Carson coming out of retirement with his neck issue. Like, not going to be seeing any of that stuff. But I would hedge bets right now that George Holani is going to be activated. And Seattle's got Ken Walker III, and that's it right now. So you're going to see 2 of these guys on the roster on Sunday. Well, whether it's going to be Velus Jones and George Holani, or George Holani and Cam Akers, or maybe it ends up being Akers and Jones are the 2, and they don't activate George Holani. Maybe all 3 of them are in uniform with some practice squad elevations. So it's going to be fascinating to see how Seattle goes about it. They're going to have to do a by-committee approach, though, Rob, to be able to replace Zach Charbonnet with what he brings to the table. You're going to have to mix and match, and you're going to have to really lean heavy on K9.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I think that a guy like Velus Jones, just the fact that he's a 4-3 speed kind of a guy. Look, we know that Kenneth Walker III historically has struggled with durability himself. So that's why I think that this should not just be thinking about how do you replace Zach Charbonnet. I think you have to be considering what happens if K9 goes down. And not that Velus Jones has any kind of history of being a feature back. To me, that's where you want to look at a more of a Halani or a Cam Akers. They do have more experience in that regard. But Velus Jones was the back that was active for the Seahawks this past weekend against the San Francisco 49ers, number 32. And, this is a player that was as highly regarded as it gets. I mean, he began his college career at USC, went to Tennessee. You mentioned the fact that he was kind of a running back receiver hybrid. He's also got some return ability to him as well. 6 foot, 203 pounder, that really is a dynamic, make you miss kind of a guy. Made some splashy plays for the Seahawks when he got in on late opportunities against, say, the Atlanta Falcons. He made a couple of runs that really jumped out to me, at least. I think that the Seahawks are ultimately going to have to bring in at least 2 of these backs, and I wouldn't be surprised even if there's a third back, because I think that you're going to see Seattle lean on the running game against the Los Angeles Rams, similar to what the Chicago Bears tried to do against LA, and obviously the way that Seattle has run the ball so effectively here for the past month or so in a row, including a victory at Lumen Field against the Rams.
The NFL playoffs are rolling along, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bet feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 NFL. The Lions have found their next offensive coordinator in former Cardinals OC Drew Petzing. Will he be able to fill the shoes Ben Johnson left behind 2 years ago in Detroit? Matt Derry looks at the hire on Locked On Lions.
Let's discuss Dr. Drew setting up an office at 222 Rodwood Drive. Yes, Drew Petzing, 38 years of age, coming over from the Arizona Cardinals, where for the last 3 years he was Jonathan Gannon's offensive coordinator. Drew Petzing is your new OC. So it's not Mike McDaniel. It's not Mike Kafka. It's not Brian Daboll. It's not Zach Robinson, T. Martin, any of the folks that the Lions were looking at. All right. And there were 7 names that were kind of linked to the Lions, yet Detroit goes outside the box and secretly, to be honest, hires Drew Petzing for this job. He, of course, replaces John Morton, who lasted 1 year. And Drew Petzing is a guy that when you want to talk about this hire, the first thing that has to be said is that he fits what the Lions want to do and have been doing. Drew Petzing is an under center offensive coordinator. Drew Petzing loves the run game. All right. Arizona Cardinals, in 2 of the 3 seasons that Petzing was the offensive coordinator, the Cardinals were a top 12 run team. All right. 2 years ago in 2024, they were number 2 in the league in rushing, in average yards per attempt over 5 a game with James Conner. This year, the Arizona Cardinals offense was basically one person. It was basically Trey McBride. He loves tight ends. He loves under center football. He loves 12 personnel, and he's very, very consistent, and he's a fit for this franchise. All right. How do I feel about it? I'm meh on this hire. I think he's fine. I was hoping to see a little bit more dynamic. I was hoping to see a little bit more something, outside the box. Here's the thing. Drew Petzing is not going to be leaving anytime soon for a head coaching job. All right. There's things he does well. There's things that Arizona Cardinals fans were unhappy about this past year when it came to creativity, when it came to aggressiveness. All right. And Jonathan Gannon and he, it didn't work in Arizona. All right. And a lot of it was not Petzing's fault. Number one, he had to coach a quarterback in Kyler Murray that was never healthy. But again, there was some success over the 3 years, like I said, with a guy like Trey McBride, who this year just absolutely blew up at the tight end position to the point of 106 catches, 1,070 yards, and 5 touchdowns averaged over the last 3 years. Trey McBride is a stud, and he used the tight ends very, very well. And he's going to fit what the Lions do. All right, which is they want to run the football. They want Goff under center, not all the time, right? But Petzing is a good fit for what the Lions already are. And that's probably why they did this. All right, a guy like Zach Robinson in Atlanta, there's more RPO stuff there. There's more 4 or 5 wide receiver stuff there that Atlanta did. Petzing fits the bill. It is not sexy by any stretch of the imagination. It's not exciting by any stretch of the imagination. It's a solid hire. And it's a fit hire for Dan Campbell. All right. Steady commitment to the run game. And let me correct myself. In 2 of the 3 seasons in Arizona, they were top 10 rushing. Cardinals ranked near the top of the league in 2 tight ends and 3 tight end deployment. So Sam Laporte has got to be thrilled with this hire because this guy wants to use the tight end. He got so much out of Trey McBride this year that he was a first-team All-Pro. And one thing that Petzing did very well, and I'm going to talk about Ben Steele in a second, and that's a name that I want you to remember. And I'm going to just bookmark Elijah Higgins for a second. Bookmark that. I'm coming back to it. But they utilize the tight end very well. And this year, with Jacoby Brissett having to be the quarterback and James Conner hurt for a lot of the year and having to use backup running backs for most of the year and guys off the street, the Cardinals did all they could, right? So this is not a sexy selection. I'm okay with it, but I'm going to be more okay with it if Petzing brings his tight ends coach with him. And I'm going to talk about that as the next move coming up next. But bottom line here is the following. The Lions are not going to veer from what they do. And give the Lions credit for something. They interviewed 7 or 8 guys. All right. They didn't just go out and hire. Last year, they screwed up. They really screwed up. They went out and hired a guy in John Morton that they knew. It wasn't right away per se. I think it was actually later in January than, like what they're doing now with Petzing. Today's the 19th. I think Morton was hired on the 30th. But the Lions a year ago should have casted a wider net and not just played buddy ball. All right. But this is a guy that at 38 years of age, highly respected around the league. He worked for Kevin Stefanski in Minnesota. Stefanski loves him. Guess who else he worked with? Guess who else he's buddies with? That's right. Benedict. Ben Johnson and Petzing were co-coaches at Boston College. They're so close. Petzing was in Ben Johnson's wedding years ago. Was one of the groomsmen. I don't know if Dan Campbell called up Ben Johnson and they had a conversation about it, but Petzing's on that tree. Norv Turner tree, Kevin Stefanski tree. That's where Petzing has been. A lot of different places, and went from Cleveland. He was in Minnesota with Stefanski when Stefanski was the OC. Went to Cleveland with Stefanski when he took the head coaching job. And he was 2 years as the tight ends coach there and then was the quarterbacks coach in 2021. And he coached Jacoby Brissett for 11 games in Cleveland, where they went 7-10, and then went to Arizona with Jonathan Gannon and spent 3 years there. And again, having to deal with the Kyler Murray situation where when Murray was healthy in one of the 3 years that Petzing was the OC in Arizona, Cardinals offense was 12th in scoring. That was 2024. This year, basically, Murray was out most of the year, and they had Brissett playing, and they survived. So Drew Petzing, the new offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, not a name that many people thought would be considered.
That's all for today's Big 3 and 30 NFL. If you follow basketball or college sports, the Big 3 and 30 also has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and on campus going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 and 30 NBA or the Big 3 and 30 College wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 3 and 30 NFL.